Buying property at foreclosure auction could be one of the best ways to get cheap property, especially in 2025. And we're going to talk about that a little bit here today. And we're actually in a property we want at foreclosure auction. We're renovating it now. Now, you could be buying at foreclosure auction maybe for yourself, looking for a house for your family, or you could be looking for an investment property. Both are, great ways. We're going to go a little bit more of that into detail today. So if you haven't yet, make sure you get a paper and pen because you're going to want to take some notes because I think there's going to be some gems here that could really help you in the near future when you go to your first auction. As always, guys, we're two guys take on real estate. We've bought hundreds of properties at foreclosure auction. Boy, have we made a lot of mistakes, but we teach you from our mistakes so you don't make the same one. If this is at all educational or helpful, make sure you subscribe. And if you have any questions about anything specific, please leave a comment below and we'll try to answer all of the questions as they come in. This is a property that is undergoing renovation that we won at foreclosure auction quite a while ago. This was probably a little over a year ago. And this, in this state here that we bought this one, this is Massachusetts, this was a non-judicial state. So there's two different types typically. There's a judicial and non-judicial. So in a non-judicial state, that means it doesn't have to be approved by a judge to actually have the auction. Whereas the judicial, it has to go through a judge. That's the big difference. Now, while there are some nuances, you're going to want to talk to a lawyer in your area so you understand the other nuances. But in general, what I like about a judicial state is typically you can find a lot of that information on state websites. Now that just means everyone can find it. Whereas a non-judicial, you're going to have to basically go through and find the auction company. Where you can generally find those is maybe in the Sunday newspaper. That is generally the big key of where you're finding these auctions is the Sunday newspaper, where I know, all right, you're maybe a little younger than me. I just turned 46, by the way. And you're like, I don't use a newspaper. Well, they often have websites as well. So once you can collect those websites, you can then look at that and kind of find a better way and understanding, where their sites are, and then you can start tracking that data so that you can get to these auctions in a timely, fashion. Then once you understand that, so now you know that, non-judicial, they're, hosted by third-party auctioneers, and you're going to be able to, go to those auctions. Often they're actually at the site. So for instance, this one, let me go over here, was right there by my truck. That's where we had the auction. And then we also had this one was actually occupied. So that's the other thing, big thing with, when you're buying these at foreclosure auction, write this down, they're as is, where is. And let me explain what that means. So you're going to an auction that basically you're not generally getting access in. Now, sometimes you will. It is a rarity, I find, but you don't have access to, inside the property. So you don't get to see, how many real bedrooms. Now, you might be able to pull up the assessor card, which is a smart move. You might be able to call the building department. That's another smart move. But you're not going to get access inside. And there could be a tenant. So for instance, this one was occupied. Now, are you going to be able to know that at the auction? There's a good chance with some common sense things like is the power on, or you can kind of maybe peep through the windows, which be careful. You're not really supposed to be going trespassing on the property. But I mean, take that for what you will, but be careful. And you could, see that there's furniture and all that stuff, and make some educated guesses, some business decisions, whether you assume it's occupied or not, and then bid accordingly. Because if they are occupied, you're going to need to follow whatever the rules are in your state for occupants. Now, if there's going to be a rule for if they're owner occupied, and then there's going to be a rule for if it's tenant occupied, and if they have a lease, or if they're month to month. These are things that you're going to need to understand so you can make the right decisions. Those are things that you're going to want to know before you go to auction, and that's going to really kind of help strategize your bidding. Once again, you don't get in, so how do you know what the rehab is? Well, a lot of that is from experience and understanding, that if the outside of the property is pretty rough, well, most likely the inside is as well. And so you're going to want to really put together a realistic budget for what that rehab is going to be. And if you don't have that experience, what I highly, highly, highly recommend, I could not stress it more, write this down, that you're going to want to bring in a contractor that maybe you're friends with or that has experience with this so that you can basically have them bidding that with you and giving you a scope of work, but also what that's going to cost so that you can then back that number out to come up with your maximum allowable bid. The other thing is to really, before any auction, whether it be judicial or non-judicial, you're really going to want to know what liens are basically prior to the auction. So if there's other liens in front of you that you're needing to pay, that's going to be really important so that you can put those numbers down on paper and take that out of the budget. So if you win, like say at the first lien, but there's a municipal lien, you're going to have to pay that amount of money at closing to also get clean title. So that's something that you're going to need to do. So you need to know this ahead of time so you can factor that into your bidding strategy. Take the time to really do that due diligence by calling the tax assessor, talking to the building department, talking to the health department, so that you can kind of factor all these factors in when you go to bid. And that's whether it's judicial or non-judicial, you're going to need to do both of those things ahead of time. Sorry, the contractor just showed up. I got to yell at him in a minute, go through everything. Are you live? I'm not live. I'm just going over a video talking about basically a step-by-step of buying at foreclosure auction. So one thing, you can kind of give it a little feedback. And if you don't have experience, like to know what a roofing per square foot costs or siding per square cost, or what a kitchen generally will cost you in your area, I said that if you can kind of make connections with a contractor, maybe bring them to the auction or go ahead of the auction to have them give you a scope and a cost ahead of time will help alleviate issues where if you just say, oh yeah, it's it's a $20,000 rehab, and then you come in and you're like, shit, this is a $40,000 rehab, easy, and we haven't even stepped a foot into the property yet. Bringing people in like yourself ahead of time to help, especially newbies, is a really smart move so that they don't kind of get caught. A team. There you go. Team. That's it is. And this is part of our team. Say hi, Jose.
How's it going?
You've got all that due diligence. You know about the liens on the property. You got a rehab budget. You know if it's judicial, non-judicial. So if it's occupied and unoccupied, well, the next thing is how are you going to purchase the property? So this isn't a traditional, you're not going to use traditional financing on this. You're going to need to use typically hard money loans. So that is basically a short-term loan from a private lender typically. It's not like a normal 30-year fixed mortgage. Or you can get private lenders. Maybe you have a bunch of family and friends that are willing to lend and give you, maybe a preferred return of like 10%. I don't know, just something out there. When you win at auction, typically, now there's different states or different ones. Some states you have to pay the whole amount that day, whatever you bid. Other states you're putting a deposit down, often 10% of the appraisal or whatever fixed amount, maybe 5, 10 grand, 15 grand, whatever it might be, and then you close within 30 days. You're going to want to look at the memorandum of sale that you see at the auction. Read that. That is the document that you're going to be saying. That's basically the purchase and sale agreement. So you're going to want to know what that says. Often they'll give you the option to read it beforehand. If you're new to this, take the time to read it before the auction so that you know what exactly you're bidding on and what you're going to be required to do. If you don't do that, you could be really in trouble when you can't close in 30 days and you can lose your deposit. That could be a big expensive risk that you could have. So I recommend really not doing that and taking the time to understand what you're signing. And if you don't have that knowledge, take that. You often get a copy of it, or maybe it's on the auctioneer's website, that you can talk and review it with a lawyer. Maybe you don't bid on this one right here that you're at, but you can bid on the next one once you have more information. Every auction company might be a little different, but the nuance, they're generally, similar with a few different nuances. Maybe one's closed in 28 days, one's 30 days, when, different deposits or different, other little clauses in there. Not one memorandum sale will be the same for all auctions, but you'll have a better idea of it. So talk to a lawyer that understands it, that you can have them review it maybe beforehand, spend a couple $100. I think it's well worth the time to understand and have a better protection for yourself because you want to make sure you're not going to lose a deposit. Not only that, some of them, if you don't, basically if you actually bid, not only could you lose the deposit, if they re-auction it, some of them will say that you could lose whatever the difference is that they re-auction it for. So let's just say, you win it for, you put $5,000 down, you won the auction for $100,000, but then, you back out and they basically have to re-auction it and then they sell it for $60,000. You could technically, in some of these memorandum sales, be held liable for that $40,000. That's a huge risk. That's horrible. That could decimate someone's, financial situation. So I would recommend really understanding that before you bid an auction. The auction is not for the faint of heart. While I did say at the beginning of this video, they can be great. You can get some great deals, which 100% we just saw us win a foreclosure auction not too long ago for a two-family for $61,000. That's awesome. We've also got that $200 two-family house in Westfield. That was another wow, amazing. But those are rare. You do have some other ones that are decent deals. But if we didn't know what we knew and got caught, losing money on every deal, that just can be devastating. So really take time to understand it before you start bidding at any auction. If you have any questions about all those things I went over, I know I went over quite a few things, but we do have a lot of videos here. So if you make sure you subscribe, you can check some of our other videos. But if you have a specific question about anything I said, leave a comment below and we'll definitely get to it. I really appreciate you guys and thank you so much and have a great day.